Some car collections feel almost too perfect. Bright floors, quiet rooms, paint polished so deeply that the cars stop feeling real. The machines become investments first and vehicles second. They sit still, protected from weather, traffic, road dust, fuel smell, and everything that once made them alive. But the cars connected with Jay Leno's garage tell a different kind of story. These are not just rare machines sitting behind glass. Many of them are remembered because they still run, still breathe, still leak occasionally, and still demand patience from the people who keep them alive. That is what makes them interesting. Not only the money, not only the rarity. The real story is in the machinery itself, the hissing steam cars. The turbine-powered experiment that sounded more like an airport than a driveway. The old Duesenbergs built during an age when American luxury meant weight, chrome, silence, and authority. So today, we are staying with the cars. No celebrity spotlight. No garage tour dependency. Just the machines, their strange character, and the reasons they still matter. Number 10. The McLaren F1. The McLaren F1 does not need noise or decoration to feel important. It looks small beside modern hypercars, almost clean by comparison. No angry wings, no oversized vents for attention. Just a low body, a central driving position, and the sense that every part was shaped for purpose. And that is what makes it so different. This was a car built with almost obsessive attention to weight, balance, and driver connection. The driver sits in the middle, with passengers slightly behind on both sides. It feels less like a normal supercar layout and more like a cockpit built around one human being. The BMW-built V12 behind the cabin gives the car its voice. Not synthetic, not filtered. A sharp, mechanical sound that climbs cleanly instead of shouting all the time. But the F1 is not easy in the modern sense. It demands respect. The clutch, the seating position, the low visibility, the value, the rarity, all of it makes the car feel serious before it even moves. That is why it remains unforgettable. The McLaren F1 was never just expensive. It was one of those rare cars where engineering, restraint, and danger all sat inside the same shape. Number 9. The Chrysler Turbine Car. The Chrysler Turbine Car feels like an idea Detroit almost convinced itself was normal. At first glance, the body looks elegant and low, with clean 1960s lines and a slightly futuristic face. But the real story is not the body, it is what sits underneath. Instead of a normal piston engine, this car used a turbine. That meant the sound was completely different from what American drivers expected. No V8 rumble, no carburetor cough, no familiar idle shaking through the steering wheel. A turbine car had a smoother, stranger voice, more like a distant jet winding up than a family car preparing to leave a driveway. For ordinary people in the 1960s, that must have felt unreal. Imagine standing beside one at a gas station and hearing that soft turbine whine instead of exhaust pulses. The idea promised smoothness, fewer moving parts, and a future that seemed almost too clean. But real life is always harder than the brochure. Turbine cars faced problems with cost, emissions, throttle response, and practicality. Still, the Chrysler Turbine Car remains fascinating because it captured a moment when Detroit was willing to try something genuinely strange. It did not become the future, but for a short time, it made the future sound possible. Number 8. The 1906 Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup Racer. Steam cars feel completely different from gasoline cars because they belong to another rhythm of life. A Stanley Steamer does not simply start and leave, it needs preparation. Heat, pressure, water, patience. The driver becomes part operator, part mechanic, part caretaker. That alone makes the experience feel older than the car itself. The 1906 Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup Racer represents an era when speed still felt dangerous in a very physical way. The wheels are narrow, the body is light, the driver sits exposed to air, noise, heat, and road dust. Nothing about it feels protective. And yet these machines were serious. Steam could deliver strong, immediate torque. There was no familiar engine rumble from under a hood because the power arrived in a different way. The car moved with a kind of eerie smoothness, accompanied by hissing, valve noise, and mechanical breathing. Modern drivers often forget how experimental early motoring really was. There was no single agreed future yet. Steam, gasoline, and electricity all competed for attention. The Stanley Steamer reminds us of that forgotten uncertainty. It is not just an old car. It is evidence from a time when nobody was completely sure what the automobile would become. Number 7. The Duesenberg SJ. The Duesenberg SJ feels like American confidence made out of metal. Everything about it seems oversized by modern standards. Long hood, grand stance, heavy controls, a presence that does not ask for attention because it already assumes the road belongs to it. In the 1930s, a Duesenberg was not ordinary luxury. It was the kind of car built for people who wanted engineering, speed, and status in one massive machine. The supercharged straight-eight gave the SJ its reputation. This was not a quiet boulevard cruiser pretending to be powerful. It truly had performance that shocked people in its time. But old performance came with old responsibility. A car like this asks more from the person driving it. Steering is physical. Brakes require planning. The engine has sounds and temperatures that need attention. The driver cannot simply press a button and let electronics hide every mistake. That is part of the appeal. The Duesenberg SJ does not feel impressive because it is easy. It feels impressive because it came from an era when luxury cars still had mechanical weight, risk, and ceremony. Even standing still, it looks expensive in a way modern cars rarely manage. Not flashy. Commanding. Number 6. The 1931 Duesenberg Model J Town Car. The Duesenberg Model J Town Car tells a quieter story than the SJ, but maybe an even richer one. This was not built to look sporty. It was built to arrive. The shape feels formal, tall, upright, almost architectural. The rear passenger area suggests a world of chauffeurs, long coats, city hotels, and doors opened by someone else. But underneath that formal body was still serious machinery. Duesenberg did not build weak cars. Even the most elegant bodies sat on engineering capable of real speed and endurance for the period. That combination is what made the Model J so respected. Inside, these cars carried a very different idea of comfort. Thick upholstery, real wood, heavy hardware, doors that closed with a serious sound, nothing lightweight, nothing casual. But age changes luxury. Leather dries. Wood cracks slightly. Old seals let in faint dust and air. The silence these cars once promised becomes mixed with creaks, smells, and little reminders that time has passed. That does not ruin the car. It makes it more human. The Model J Town Car matters because it shows how American luxury once looked before mass production softened everything. It was not trying to be sporty, efficient, or modern. It was trying to be important. And it still feels that way. Number 5. The 1934 Duesenberg Walker Coupe. The Duesenberg Walker Coupe is one of those cars that seems almost too elegant to belong to ordinary traffic. The proportions are long and low for the period, with a kind of restrained drama that does not need decoration piled on top. It looks expensive without becoming loud. That is difficult to do. Many old luxury cars impress through size alone. The Walker Coupe does something more subtle. It combines Duesenberg engineering with coach-built personality. the kind of shape that came from an era when wealthy buyers could still commission cars almost like tailored clothing. Every detail feels deliberate. The hood stretches forward with confidence. The cabin sits back. The roofline gives the car a private, almost secretive feeling. It looks like a machine built for someone who wanted speed and elegance without explaining either one. But cars like this are not simple to preserve. Parts are rare. Bodywork can be almost impossible to duplicate correctly. Trim pieces are not something you order casually from a catalog. Every repair becomes an act of research. That is why these cars matter beyond beauty. They carry the memory of craftsmanship, but also the burden of keeping craftsmanship alive. The Walker Coupe is not just rare. It is fragile history with an engine. Number 4. The Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic. The Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic does not look like most cars because it was never trying to be ordinary. The body seems sculpted rather than assembled. The long hood, low roof, flowing fenders, and raised center seam give it an almost unreal presence. Even people who do not know vintage cars can tell immediately that something unusual is happening. But the Atlantic is more than a beautiful object. It represents one of the most daring periods in automotive design. Bugatti was not simply building transportation. The company was mixing engineering, art, speed, and personality in a way few manufacturers ever managed. A car like this changes the atmosphere around it. It does not need to move fast to feel dramatic. The shape alone carries tension. It looks fragile and powerful at the same time. And that is the strange part. Many modern performance cars try hard to look aggressive. The Atlantic does not. It looks mysterious instead. That mystery is why people still talk about it. The Atlantic reminds us that rarity alone does not create greatness. Some rare cars are just scarce. This one became remembered because the design still feels impossible decades later. It looks like something that escaped from another world. Number 3. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing is one of the few cars where opening the door becomes part of the legend. Those doors are not just decoration. They came from the structure underneath, because the car's tubular frame made normal doors difficult. That practical engineering problem accidentally created one of the most recognizable shapes in automotive history. But the Gullwing is not only about doors. It feels serious everywhere. The seating position is low. The sills are wide. Getting in gracefully takes practice. Drivers do not simply step into a Gullwing. They fold themselves into it. The engine, with mechanical fuel injection, gave the car remarkable performance for its time. But, like many great old cars, it was never effortless. The cabin could get hot. The steering felt heavy at low speed. Visibility and comfort were not modern priorities. That is what makes it honest. The Gullwing was beautiful, but it was also demanding. It rewarded drivers who respected its engineering and punished those who treated it like a modern luxury car. Today, it remains one of the great post-war sports cars because it combined innovation with drama. Not fake drama. Mechanical drama. The kind you feel before the engine even starts. Number 2. The Lamborghini Miura. The Lamborghini Miura changed the way people imagined exotic cars. Before the Miura, many fast road cars still followed a familiar grand touring formula. Long hood, engine in front, elegant cabin, speed wrapped in tradition. Then the Miura arrived looking like something lower, wider, and more dangerous. Its mid-engine layout gave it a completely different personality. The car did not feel like a traditional luxury coupe. It felt more like a racing idea that had somehow been allowed onto public roads. The shape still works today because it is not over-designed. The eyelashes around the headlights, the low nose, the curved roofline, and the wide rear stance all feel dramatic without becoming cartoonish. But the Miura also had flaws. Old exotic cars often did. Cabin heat could be intense, visibility was limited, maintenance required patience and money. The car could feel nervous at speed, compared with later supercars that benefited from decades of aerodynamic knowledge. Still, people forgive the Miura because it changed the emotional language of performance cars. It made the supercar feel beautiful, frightening, and glamorous all at once. Number 1. The McLaren F1 again, but for a different reason. The McLaren F1 deserves to return at the end because it represents the opposite side of the same story. If the Miura helped define the emotional supercar, the F1 refined the idea into something almost obsessive. It was built with fewer compromises than most cars ever receive. Carbon fiber construction, central driving position, naturally aspirated V12, gold foil in the engine bay for heat reflection. Every detail felt intentional. But what makes the F1 special is not just the technology. It is the restraint. Modern hypercars often chase numbers until the driver becomes secondary. The F1 feels different because it still places the human being at the center, literally and emotionally. The car is valuable now, almost absurdly valuable, but that is not the most interesting part. The interesting part is that it still feels like a machine meant to be driven by someone with hands, feet, fear, and judgment. No fake sound. No unnecessary theater. Just a light car, a great engine, and engineering that trusted the driver.